job.
Hello, my name is Sachi Kamia, and this is my wife, Sunday. We've been attending Lakewood Ranch, I guess a little bit before it was Lakewood Ranch. We had started attending a small church called University Baptist back in '99.
We were living in a neighborhood, and I had a 1-year-old. Saji was in night school at that time, working on his master's, and my daughter and I were playing in the front yard. A neighbor came by with her daughter, and the two girls just kind of sort of gravitated to each other, so we decided to set up a play date. Through the course of that time, I mentioned that our daughter, who was turning 3 at the time, was going to start Awanas. There was Awanas at our church on Wednesday nights, so we invited her to come to Awanas.
When I met Sunday, we were having play dates on Thursday nights, and I remember asking, did they go to church? Where did they go to church? And she said that they attended a local Baptist church. And I remember saying, oh, okay, well, I'm going to find a Methodist church, because that's what I knew, and that's what I grew up going. But I wasn't going to go by myself, so I really struggled with that. And once we got Allie and Kaya involved in Awanas, and I was attending the women's Bible study, I was like, this isn't that different. The church isn't that different. I started coming on Sunday mornings.
I could tell that they were definitely church-going neighbors. My wife started attending church, started to go to church on a regular basis, felt very threatened by that, very upset by that. And I, for many years, had ammunition built up about church. I didn't particularly care for it. I didn't care for how it was run. I didn't care for what I felt was a fake attitude in the church, kind of a leave it to Beaver feel. Everybody's smiling, saying, "Oh, so glad to see you, so happy to see you," and it always felt just unreal to me. It didn't feel legitimate to me. So every time someone would invite me to church, I could shoot that down in a heartbeat, and I could pretty much quiet them in a hurry.
So once I started attending church on a regular basis, and I was attending community group, Wednesday night studies, and I was praying and asking the church to pray and our community group to pray, because I wanted Chris to attend church, but knew how he felt about organized religion. He just wasn't a fan of it. We were fighting a lot. It was a very difficult time in our marriage, and I just thought, something's got to change here. And he kept mentioning that I had changed, and so it caused a lot of stress in our marriage. But I just kept praying about it, kept asking folks in the church to pray about it, and we didn't want to give up.
I just remember having a conversation with Chris about, well, who would go to church and why, and certain people you don't necessarily want to go to see, and how you don't necessarily like to be with certain folks that might be more hypocritical than others. And I just remember having the conversation with him, trying to say there are benefits to church, but mostly that I go because I go to spend time with God.
I remember sitting in the Kamia's house one afternoon, and we did become friends with the Kamias. And I was like, they're churchgoers, but they're all right. I still like hanging out with them. And I remember Saji, kind of mentioned to me about going to church once. And I was kind of waiting for that conversation, and I went into it. I went into how, look at the modern day church. It's a social club. When I was done talking, I remember Saji's words were kind of along the lines of, well, I can't really argue with you about some of your things that you have to say, and I can't promise you that there aren't going to be people like that or situations like that in church. But what I can say is I go to church for God. I go to church because that's where I can worship Him, that's where I can praise Him, and that's where I can serve Him. And it's not about what I'm going to get out of it. And for all the ammunition that I had built up, I had nothing for that. And I never really could come up with a good comeback for that one. So eventually in my life, with a lot of other things, God was calling me. And it came to a point where I could either make a decision to follow Him and let His will overtake mine, or I could deny Him. And I'd seen enough that I could no longer deny Him.
one Sunday morning, he just got up and started to get dressed, and I said, "Where are you going?" And he said, "I'm going to church." And I had to run into another room and, have my excited moment because I didn't want him to see it. I wanted to play it cool and, okay, no big deal. You're going to church. That's fine.
I think lessons learned is you never know where somebody's at in their life, and you don't know where God's working on them at, and so you can't necessarily always give up on somebody just because you think that that's where they might be. You might be wrong.